The battle against communalism is not a battle that can be fought strictly and only through constitutional, legal, policy, or administrative means. The battle has to be fought primarily in the health of the minds of our people. The values of our civilization, the traditional values, have to be inculcated in the minds of the younger India, of today's India. The minds of a generation that was not touched by the freedom struggle, a generation which, unfortunately, has not been educated in the values of the freedom struggle, in the values of Indian civilization. The battle has to be fought with political action. In a rapidly changing and developing society, the balances in society change very quickly and rapidly. One section or group which is relatively well established suddenly finds that another section which was much weaker, much more economically depressed, suddenly it's surging ahead. Other groups which hold power lose power. There's an economic shift, there's a geographical shift, there's a mixing. All this puts tremendous pressure on our society. And the simplest solution for politicians without a vision is to grab at the straws that are hanging out. The simplest, easiest straw to grab at is the communal straw. We have to see that we do not allow communal platforms to become the political platforms for the benefit and progress of individuals. We have to see that political parties which rely on communal sentiments are not allowed to progress and prosper. There must be no compromise with the forces of reaction. The correct priorities must be given to the welfare of the minorities. And the minorities could be of any religion in a different part of India. And depending on how you look at the particular problem, if the units are small, the people who are in a minority may be totally different to the people who are in a minority in the state as a whole. If you look at India, there are certain groups which are majorities, certain groups which are minorities. If you go to one state, it might reverse. If you go within that state to a particular part of the state, a particular region of the state, the situation may again reverse. So at each level, in each division, we have to see that the minority and the weaker groups in that section are not suppressed and are not pushed into a corner. The responsibility must be that of the majority. It is only when the majority make the minority feel that they are at home, they are one, that these feelings will be removed and will go. When we talk of secularism, we talk of secularism as part of government policy. There are ramifications of that. What happens when you take secularism to education? I have just said education must be secular. That is why I am coming back to it. What values will you inculcate when you say education is secular? Because if you go to the roots of any values, invariably you find they will go to a religion. So we have to go not to a religion, we have to go perhaps to Gandhiji and to Tagore and to Jawaharlal Nehru, because that is where we'll find the values which cut across the religious values that have come up. We have to see that any discrimination is removed from the minds of the administration and the authorities. Too often, our administrative systems are very highly biased. And this becomes even more problematical at the contact point with the people. All our attention goes to economic development, forgetting that long-term economic development is tied very closely to good law and order and to communal harmony and to peace in our society. There can be no development if our society is not at peace with itself. So what is needed is a very massive education process for the people. So they demand, they understand, and then they demand what is really needed for them, for their development, for the economic development. This requires very close coordination between voluntary organizations, government, political parties, everybody who's active in changing our society, in modernizing our society, in taking our society out from its poverty into a much higher standard of living. Lastly, I'd like to say that secularism must be a way of life rooted in our traditional principles, in our values, in our ideology of truth, of non-violence, of compassion, of tolerance, and it must not be a subject for political or other exigencies. We look forward to your organization and other organizations such as yours to working with the various governments in fighting communalism, in fighting obscurantism and such forces, to see that India develops strong, our unity and integrity is strengthened. This is not just an exercise we want to do to prove something to ourselves. India is perhaps the first serious experiment in a multifaceted, diverse society in today's world. You look at any other country, I don't think any other country has taken on such a challenge. So the challenge is not just a demonstration to ourselves, it is also a demonstration to the world that humanity, in all its diversity, can live as one without building narrow walls and chasms between ourselves. It is a demonstration to the world that the philosophies, India's ancient philosophies, as expounded recently by Mahatma Gandhi and Jawaharlal Nehru and Indira Ji,